Hello, everybody. My name is Dimitris, and you're watching Altars of Metal. Tonight, we have the frontman of the band Ultimus, Mr. David Vincent, whom you also know from Am Morbid, Terrorizer, Nero 5468, The Headcut, and also in the past, ex-Jenny Torturers, and of course, ex-Morbid Angel. Mr. David Vincent, ladies and gentlemen. Hello, David. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. It's glad we finally get a chance to talk. I know we've been working on scheduling this for a while, and duty calls. So glad that we were able to squeak out some time for this today.
Perfect. Glad you could join. Welcome to Altars of Metal Show, and I really appreciate it that you offer us some of your precious time. I gotta say, for me, this interview is kind of special, as you're in a way like godfather of our show, just to keep you in the loop. I started this Altars of Metal as a fanzine back in 97, in the age of 16. I was running it until 2004, and just restarted it after exactly 20 years. I decided to revive it in the form of an online video podcast, like the way we do it now, where we can do live interviews, take it easy, have a beer with our favorite artists, giving our audience also the opportunity to interact with them, in the comment section, pick up some of their questions, and so on and so forth. So, all right, I will start with reading out a few details of your bio. I don't think we need too many introductions, but most people will say that you started as a producer of Morbid Angel on their aborted debut album, and then you joined them in 1986. But I know that you will probably correct me and say that that's not when you started your journey in music, but you actually started somewhere at the age of 6. Am I right?
Well, I mean, it's not professionally certainly, but yeah, I've been into music for a long time, as long as I can remember, and it's when something is, as much a part of your life as it is for me, it's kind of not something that you can deny. It's almost like, it reveals itself to you, and then you follow the path, and you make the path as well.
Mm-hmm.
So,
But professionally, it was in 1986 at the age of 21, I suppose, and you stayed with Morbid Angel for 10 years, then you left in 1996, joined the Jenny Torturers. 2004, you rejoined Morbid Angel for another 11 years, and in 2015, you quit again. Correct me if I do any mistake. Currently, you perform with Am Morbid, The Headcut, Ultimus, along with Flo Munier of Cryptopsy and Rune Blasphemer Eriksson, formerly of Mayhem. And you also played in Terrorizer along with Pete Sandoval and Jesse Pintado. So far, so good?
So far, so good. Although Terrorizer, we have been doing Terrorizer shows over the past year, and we have other plans coming up with that. But yeah, I like it. Keeping diversity in music is important to me. That way, I look at everything differently. I look at the approach differently. And it's fun to keep exploring new things musically, but of course right now, I mean, Ultimus is the main focus.
Yeah, you've kept it diverse indeed. I mean, I saw even your country project, which is quite different from what we got used to, your work and everything, but we'll get there. You have also contributed lead vocals on Bloodfire War Hate on Soulfly's 2008 album Conquer. You have also collaborated with Mexican metal band Nuclear Chaos, and as of 2016, you have also been performing your, country music as David Vincent, and you released a single, Drinking with the Devil. You also started a project back in 2013, Nero 5468, along with guitarist Niklas Engelin from In Flames and Engel, and drummer Magnus Ade Andreasson from Hardcore Superstar. But I have absolutely no clue about this project, to be honest with you. So quite a bio there. You never cease to be active. My first question would be about the Nero 5468 project, because I tried to find some information over there. We will, of course, focus mainly on Ultimus tonight, but
sure.
It's a big question mark for me. I was really curious, and I wanted to ask you about that.
Sure. Well, they had some ideas. We got together a couple of times, and I think our visions were differing on where it needed to go. so it went nowhere. It was a lot of fun working on it when we did, but that's something that at the end of the day did not yield any results. So
Okay.
these things happen.
All right, because I remember you guys were about to record something. You had a lot of material and everything, but finally it was just you dumped the project, yeah?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Okay, and I think you have also collaborated with Nergal at some point. I read somewhere.
Yeah, I did. I did a track with him on his "Me and That Man" project, which that was actually really fun.
Okay. All right. So let me start with the usual. That was reading the bio, just going through it as we usually do, and let me just start with usual standard questions that are equally as important, of course. And let me start with Ultimus. You have released 2 albums, Something Wicked Marches On in 2019 and Epic in 2024. You also performed some gigs. I remember you arrived back home a little bit before the Christmas period. Where did you guys play, and how was the acceptance and reactions of the fans been so far?
Well, the reaction has been pretty good. It's the question is it still not widely known, much to our dismay, but we keep working on it because we all believe in it quite a bit. And like I said, that's pretty much, one of the most important things to me right now. So we played around Europe. We've done a lot of European. As a matter of fact, here next month in the States, we're doing our first tour with Ultimus in North America. So U.S. and Canada. And we'll be supporting my buddies in Septic Flesh. So,
all right. Okay.
Looking forward to that. They're one of my favorite bands. So.
Okay. So
if
when
nothing
is that?
else, it'll be entertaining for me.
When is that starting?
It starts. The first show is February the 8th.
All right, and it's gonna last until
about a month.
About a month. Okay. Cool. All right. Any other gigs we can expect with any other of your bands?
Well, I mean, we're filling up the schedule for next year. We have some Terrorizer stuff in South America. We have some Morbid stuff in Europe for summer festivals. Also Terrorizer. And yeah, I mean, there's new things coming in every day. So.
Okay. All right, so I know as far as Ultimus is concerned, I know it might be a bit early for that question, but do you guys perhaps have any new material in your heads, any ideas written down or something, or is not the time yet?
Yes, we do. We've already started working on the next record.
Okay, all right. Okay, any hints or?
Well, I mean, I'm one of these kind of guys that doesn't like to talk about things until it's tangible. I will say that we write well together. By the way, Flo Monnier is no longer working with the band.
Okay.
He did record Epic, but his scheduling is such that he was unable to continue, for the future.
All right.
So, but we're working away. The tour that we did was good in Europe. And, the band sounds great and everybody gets along very well. So, that's a pleasant thing. And looking forward to this tour in the States and then, carving out some time to, continue to working on the new material.
Okay, cool. And how did you guys get together to form Ultimus, going back to the start? I mean, how did you get these members and go through?
Well, it's a long story, but I'll make it short. So, I'm a fan of Mayhem, for a long time, and I was friends with their drummer Hellhammer. Yeah, and we found ourselves on a festival with them on the same day, and I met with them, and it was like old times. Maybe your viewers may remember that Hellhammer was also in Immortal. some back, and that's when we all met, because in 1996, 95, 96, Immortal was direct support for Morbid Angel on a European tour. So we got to know those guys and got to be good friends. So anyhow, advancing in the future, I saw them at this festival, and I said, "Hey, I'd like to check out the show because I'd never seen it before." And I met Runa at that show, Blasphemer, and we started talking, and I really like the way that he plays guitar. He has a very interesting approach, very interesting, very unique sense of melody. And we started talking, and we were talking over the years, and we'd meet up and say, yeah, it'd be really cool to work on some stuff together, at some point. And of course, discussions without effort behind them only stay as discussions.
Yeah.
So we probably saw each other another few times over the years, and the discussion always came back up. Yeah, one of these days we got to sit down and write some stuff. Well, I was sitting at home, and all of a sudden I got a telephone call, and it was Blasphemer. And we started talking, yeah, what are you doing? And yada, yada. And we started speaking, and finally he says, so, we ought to work on something. We've talked about this. I'm like, yep, you're right. And let's start right now. He said, okay. So he had been working on some stuff, and along with Flo. And so they flew to Texas, and we sat down and just started hashing some stuff out, and it turned into Something Wicked Marches In.
Cool.
So, it took us a minute to figure out how well we work together. And the main thing is there's no replacement in my mind for being in the same room together and writing.
Yeah.
Because the things spontaneously come up that wouldn't come up if you were only writing in sort of a static way, sharing stuff on the internet. Definitely,
so, because it's on the fly. You got everybody next there, and you're going like, hey, I've got an idea. Let's do it like this way, and one corrects the other. Corrects is not the right word, but you know what I mean. One gives ideas to the other. So
one contributes to the next. So we realized that, and of course that's a challenge because Rune's in Europe, Flo is in Canada, and I'm the lowly American. So obviously it involves plane tickets, and it's not like we live next door to each other. If we did, we'd probably be on record number 6 right now, because certainly the travel restrictions and whatnot during COVID really it put a boot right in our face. So we couldn't get together. We couldn't, nobody could. I mean, there was no travel, there was no anything, which was a very depressing time for me, by the way, because without music in my life, I'm not a happy guy. So
yeah,
once that lifted and we were able to get back together, then we picked pretty much up right where we left off. And although we lost a little bit of momentum, as many folks in our industry did, we're picking it back up now, and we're getting after it as quick as we can.
Cool. Okay. At some points, I will be reading also some comments from our viewers. There's a few people saying hello and good evening, and well, good afternoon to you.
Hello to everybody.
And there's my friend Vitamin Death. He says, one thing David said on an interview back on the Morbid Angel days was something like, we are very serious about what we do. It never left me, and in a way I always ask that when I listen to new music, are they serious? Is there some form of soul there?
Well, if that's a question to me, absolutely. That hasn't changed one bit. I am very serious. I mean, I do have a sense of humor, and I do have a sense of entertainment, but everything I do is deadly serious.
Cool. Okay. Now I want us to focus a little bit on Epic. What do the lyrics of Epic talk about?
Well, I'm not going to spoon feed you or anyone else. I mean, you need to read it and sort of come up with your own interpretation. It could mean a lot of things.
But yeah, the question obviously is what part of your soul is actually that you put over there? What are your feelings, that you try to channelize to your lyrics when you actually write them?
Misery.
Misery. Okay.
Pointing it out, reflecting it, amplifying it, turning it into entertainment, turning it into thought-provoking parables, and encouraging strength.
And that's the beautiful thing when you actually create, when you do an art, and in your case it's music. You can take things that trouble you and you can put them like in a box and use that box to a benefit, take it out of yourself, release it out in the open and create something artistic, right?
Indeed.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So, what would you say are the differences of Epic in comparison with something Wicked?
Growth. I think the same way, as people go along, I mean, there are some, bands, artists out there who they sort of get a formula and they stick with it. So you can hear, very, very close similarities throughout a band's catalog. I'm not burdened by that thought process. I enjoy always doing something new, and I probably should, but I don't consider what something should be or what's expected. Mm-hmm. I can promise you that I expect more from myself than anybody else could ever expect from me. And I take that real seriously, and I go in and I try to be as honest and as transparent as possible with the music.
Does that mean that you're kind of strict with yourself, like a strict judge?
Oh, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Okay. And how happy are you with the result of Epic, the way it came out, everything, the whole package?
I'm very, very pleased with it. Mm-hmm. Best thing I've ever done.
Good. Glad to hear. We've got Jake Bream over here, and he says, "Hey, David, big fan of your work. What would you say was the record you had the most fun recording during your Morbid years?" And I will extend the question and say not only Morbid years, but say in general. So you have a double question over there.
That's a tough one because, and let me break it down for you. So you're young, you have all the time in the world to do your first record. All the time in the world.
Indeed.
And you rehearse for it, and you get everything as tight as possible, et cetera, and then you record it. And then the second one comes along, and you've learned some things from the first one, but you're in a time crunch, and hopefully, you're better. You and your band, everyone is better than they were with a bit more experience, more live shows, more time rehearsing. Enjoying the benefits of being able to do some of these things and learning from them. So with each subsequent record that you do, there's more knowledge, there's more skill, there's obviously the changes in your frame of reference because you probably traveled more, you probably met more people, you probably experienced new things, which will add to the cacophony as you're putting it all together.
Okay.
So, and this is not a static thing. This is something that grows and it gets added to like every day. I'm one of those people that, gosh, if a day goes by that I don't learn something new or have some kind of stimulation that's fresh, I feel like I've wasted a day. Mm-hmm. So I have a mental like tote bag, right? And I fill it with new and exciting things. And then I critically think about those things and see, what can I use? I see something and maybe it will inspire some lyrics. I watch a film, and maybe there's a few lines in a film that really get me thinking, and that's something that I can use as an inspiration. So I know I'm kind of walking around this question right now, but it's truly difficult to say how much fun. Listen, I enjoy being in the studio, no matter how many challenges there are, no matter how low or how high the budget is, no matter how long it takes, because it's what I do. You know, this is not an easy path. I knew that when I started it. I know it more today than I did when I started, and yet I still continue because this is who I am. So I hope that somewhat answers the question. I mean, I have fun doing all of them. Everything I've ever done, I've enjoyed. And if I didn't, I wouldn't do it.
Okay. So just to make it a little bit more difficult and push the question that was asked, would you like to name a record you had the most fun recording during your Morbid years and subsequently in general? As the question was.
Well, I enjoy them all for their uniqueness and for the time, for where I was at that time.
Each and every one of them for a different reason and for the
each and every one of them, because it's all part of a portfolio. I mean, all of these, they're all my children. You know, you don't say, "Oh, I like my first son better than my second son," or you know, and because they're different. You know what I mean? And you enjoy the differences, and you gravitate towards what your original intent was. I mean, if I was to re-record more Ultras Madness today, same exact songs, it would come out much differently because I'm in a different place right now, obviously. And I think that would be true for anything that anybody does in life. They hone their skills. They have different reference points. They have a different overall world frame of reference and point of view. And all of those things contribute to the art. So I'm happy that everything happened the way that it was. I wouldn't, not that I'm saying I want to re-record any records, but because it's a historical document and it represents a place and a time. And you know, as we grow as human beings.
Yeah, because David today is different from David yesterday, and that counts for each and every second, I think.
Absolutely.
For all of us. And obviously things we would do today, we would do them differently than the way we would do them 10 years ago or even the day before or something. So obviously. Flower Travel 21 is a user who is asking a question that I also wanted to ask further down. It's somewhere in my questions, and he says, I wanted to ask about the lyrics of Morbid Angel back in the day. You and Trey still believe in the occult and the metaphysical aspects of evil?
Well, I can only speak for myself.
Yeah, obviously.
And yes, I am a very spiritual person. Now, I'm not going to define that in such small terms, but I will leave it at that I am a very spiritual person.
Okay, good. All right. When a tree's branches reach the heavens, its roots must reach the depths of hell and feed from its lava, is something that I like to say. Likewise, I believe a woman can be my only, my one and only, my princess demoness. A creature that can create both heaven and hell in a man's life. A creature that can make you blessed and sick. What are your thoughts?
Well, that sounds quite poetic.
And I tried.
And I agree with that. Nice references, by the way.
Thank you. I don't know. Yeah, you just agree?
Well, I mean... I don't know if there's a question there. I mean, you said, "What do I think about that?" And I said, "Yes, I do agree."
Okay.
If you know, I respond to the questions that are asked.
Okay. Good. All right. David, does history fascinate you?
It does.
And okay, what eras of human history fascinate you the most, and why?
Well, the most, I don't know, but it's what I've determined is that people need to pay more attention to history because, quite frankly, there are no changes in the human condition whatsoever.
You're almost covered my next part of the question. Go ahead.
So, other than probably some new scientific discoveries or medicine, technology, the human condition, our emotions, and the way that we deal with things as humans hasn't changed. So we're evolving technologically, but we're stuck in the same quicksand of human emotion. And sometimes the decisions that are made don't take into account what we could learn from history if we all spent a bit more time studying things. Yeah. Like if you do A, then you can expect result B. When you throw a stone and the waves in the water and the waves that go out, there are consequences for every decision we make. Some of them good, some of them bad. But again, most decisions, the decision-making process hasn't changed either. Other than, with the advent of, okay, if someone's sick, we don't bloodlet anymore because it's not the blood that's the poison. There's medicines now, and now there's new genotherapies now, et cetera, et cetera. So, we feel bad, we want to feel better. And how do we get to that point? Do we chop off an arm, or do we find a way to fix the arm? And so as science and medicine and technology continue to grow, then we have more options. But our emotions and our feelings towards things and how we make decisions as human beings hasn't changed one bit. And I would I would challenge anyone to look throughout history and think, oh, well, I have this one situation or I have this belief and this is something new. Well, okay. I would love for somebody to point that out to me, that cannot be traced back through history and see similar decisions or similar emotions that haven't happened in the past and what the end result of those things would have been. I can't find any.
I think human nature is condemned to go into cycles and repeat history again and again, because unless it happens to you yourself, you will not learn by the mistakes of others.
This is true. And we could learn by those mistakes, but we're far too proud and we're far too vain to do so.
I was going to say we're not that advanced.
Well, but that's what I'm saying. We can advance in everything in the world except our own emotions. As a whole. As a whole. I'm not saying, okay, you touch a hot burner, you burn your hand, you don't do that again. I'm saying that when it comes to questions of religion, politics, relationships, it's all been done before.
Yeah. And do you draw inspiration from history when you write lyrics?
Yes, I do. Most certainly do.
What about mythology?
Mythology. Well, mythology stems from a number of things, many of which have been explained scientifically, many of which only require faith. Literature is a bastard when it comes to that. Poetry and literature that describe the human condition are wonderful, but again, that's historical. Whether it was written yesterday or whether it was written 1,000 years ago. There's all kinds of wisdom that is available to us, we have to decide that we want to take it.
David, sometimes the line between paranoia and genius is not even thin. It's practically invisible, I think. And many times I even think it's shifting to an extent that nobody can really define where exactly it lies and identify it. Would you agree?
I would agree.
Would you have any personalities from the human history that you consider that it's indistinguishable, that this line is indistinguishable? Any personalities?
Aleister Crowley, for one.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And in music?
Wow. Richie Blackmore. Bach. Mozart, absolutely. Probably everyone.
Good.
Honestly, self-included.
And the human soul, do you think it is a blessing or a sickness in the cosmos?
Well, it depends on if your view is that you're a part of something or that you're only an individual. I believe that we're all part of a continuum. And those who don't believe that, then I can't even state where to go with that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Let me read a couple of comments as well.
Sure.
Lily Arte says, Illud Divinum Insanus, the Remixes is an amazing album by Morbid Angel. Vitamin Death says, each record is a part of David. He carves a piece each time. And George Theodoris, I think you would expect that question from fans, and I think you get these questions millions of times. But he says, is there a hope? I think I know the answer. Is there a hope to be back in Morbid Angel again?
Well, let's define that question. Does that mean that I don't have an answer for that?
Yeah.
I have a feeling about it, but I don't have a definitive answer.
Okay, good. It works for me. Okay. Okay. Jake Bream says, quick side note, David, just finished your book recently. Are you doing book signings at the Septic Flesh shows? Missed your signing when you and Pete stopped by San Diego with I Am Morbid.
I had not planned on bringing books to this, as although it's about me and it does include some Ultimus quips in it, it's more of an individual thing than it is a band thing. Mm-hmm. So my plan is to not bring books on this next tour.
Okay, all right.
However, anybody can go to my online shop, Big Cartel official David Vincent, and they can get books, they can get them signed, they can get anything that's in my catalog is available there, and some interesting rare pieces as well.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Okay. Now, I remember seeing you with Morbid Angel in Athens here in Greece back in 2004. What do you remember from our country, Greece, and the Greek fans?
Well, number one, I love the food. I love the culture. And it's one of the places that when I see that on the schedule, I'm always happy to go.
Cool.
Have a lot of friends there.
Well, I hope we get to see you again sometime in our country with any of your bands. Hopefully. Okay, now I remember Chuck Schuldiner, may he rest in peace. He used to say how much he hated the labels in music, and he always said, just let the metal flow, it's all just metal. Now, Personally, regardless of my huge respect for Chuck, I always disagreed with that statement. Labels are there only to give a general characterization, so that we use it as a language tool to further define something and make sure we better understand what to expect. Otherwise, we could just say, well, it's all music, and then you buy something, expect to listen to a nice death metal band, and it turns out it was hip-hop or something like that. I don't know what do you think about labels in metal anyway? Would you agree with Chuck, or do you think that they actually destroy the essence?
Well, so I can say, I mean, I knew Chuck, and we hung out quite a bit. So I'm pretty sure that comment is based on some of his personal experiences within the industry. And I've had times when I was very annoyed by labels myself. Oh, you're not talking about record labels. You're talking about...
No. I'm talking about labels as in defining something as death metal or heavy metal or techno-progressive metal or whatever metal, you know.
Gotcha. Well, there are some bands that are much easier to put into a box than others.
True.
And, you know, Chuck, obviously between Scream, Bloody Gore, and Human, there's a whole lot of growth and evolution there. So maybe he got tired of hearing, you know, this subgenre and stuff. It's much easier for a journalist or a fan or anybody to quantify something and say, okay, it's this or it's this. You know, it's brutal, speed, thrash, death, you know, progressive, power, you know, and the subgenres within all these things, and you know, oh, we're this or we're that. I mean, it becomes boring to me as well. I listen to music, and if I like it, I like it. If I don't, I don't. And it doesn't matter what so-called quote-unquote genre that it is.
And speaking of Chuck, what do you remember of him?
He was actually a really cool guy. Really creative, nice, worked very hard, great vocals. Yeah, I mean, I can't think of anything bad to say about him. Okay.
John Kosk is asking in the comments, he says, do you consider your affection in death metal? For me, with Morbid Angel, you have made the death metal scene globally effective, and it actually aligns with my next question, which I wrote, that you belong to the pioneers of death metal, in my opinion. It was Morbid Angel, along with Dayside, Obituary, Death, I would even say Cannibal Corpse, who set the foundations of death metal. I don't know if you agree or not. How do you feel having been a part of this, and how do you see the death metal scene, the way it has evolved after all these years?
Well, you have to remember that, you know, back when we were doing this, when we were, you know, just in the infancy of Morbid Angel, there were very few bands.
Indeed.
And you could listen to us, you could listen to Chuck, Atheist, Executioner, which turned into Obituary, and a lot. Everybody sounded different. They sounded unique. Nowadays, I hear an awful lot of sort of plagiarism.
Yeah.
Where a band comes, oh, you know, someone will come up to me and say, oh yeah, listen to my band. Here's the CD. We're really influenced by Morbid Angel, and I listen to it, and yeah, I mean, it sounds like you wrote songs that wanted to sound like Morbid Angel. I mean, what? And I always ask people, well, what do you sound like? I mean, you know, we all have our influences. I could tell you some of mine, and you wouldn't hear, unless I explained to you what the influence was, it picked it apart, you wouldn't hear anything that you could, well, that doesn't sound like it's an influence. Yeah, because an influence is just it's just that you're inspired by something, and something moves you enough to incorporate some version of that, a redefined version of that, into your arsenal. And it's not, oh, we need a song that sounds like, Maze of Torment, or we need a song that sounds like it. Well, it's great, and I appreciate people liking what we've done, but I also appreciate it when people take something and do their own thing. And I'm hearing a lot less originality. People say, well, there's nothing left to do. I'm like, well, I don't believe that. I don't believe that there's nothing left to do. And if that's what somebody believes, then they're doing everything really for the wrong reason.
Okay.
But that's me saying that. I mean, other people may disagree with that, and everything that comes out of my mouth is my own personal opinion. It doesn't. It's not meant to be bearing on anybody else. It's just the way that I feel after doing this for so many years.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Having mentioned these bands before, like Obituary, Dayside, the Members of Death, Cannibal Corpse, what are your relationships, your relations with the aforementioned artists, with these bands?
I think, we're all reasonably cordial. I don't really see each other that often, maybe sometimes at festivals. And it's like, hey dude, what's up? Or, some are true friendships. Some are just acquaintances.
Yeah, of course.
But, whether I'm good friends with somebody or not, I respect the lifer status, meaning that someone who has done something nearly as long as I have, whether I like them as a person or not, I respect them for the fact that they've persevered in a business that's otherwise about as ugly as it gets. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I know what I went through, so therefore I know what they had to go through.
Right. Okay. The user Addy, he says, does David remember Necrovore? What he thinks about that legendary demo, and story goes, he and Trey were asked to join Necrovore at one point. Is he in contact with any of those guys?
So I'm no longer in contact with them. There was only one main fellow, John DePlache, and he actually came on tour with us a couple times. One day he showed up in Florida. He showed up at the door. And I didn't know he was coming. Nobody did. But there was a knock at the door, and I opened up the door. I'm like, John? He's like, David, how are you? I'm like, huh, what's up? So he hung out for a while, and we were going on tour, and he goes, yeah, I'll just come with you guys. I'm like, okay. I remember the band. I liked the stuff. For whatever reason, it didn't go anywhere past the demos. But other than that, I don't have any knowledge or anything else to say about that.
Okay. All right. Technology. Things were way different back then. We used to send letters to each other, not emails. We used to wait for months until we would get a reply, and listening to new stuff, was not easy. It was not an easy task. You really had to start digging till you would discover something. Today, however, technology helps us not only find anything, but also it makes things much easier when we produce music, when we promote it, etc. Of course, there's so many other bands, and so I think we also get lost when we try to produce something, because it's not as many bands as back then. It's a huge difference. But how do you see this whole thing with technology, the way it has changed the scene and the situations?
All right. Well, that's going to be a long answer. So I remember the old days very well. I remember recording demos and making duplicate cassettes and sending them by the mail, by snail mail, all around the world to different fanzines and different sort of people that we knew about by reading fanzines. And That's how we cut our teeth, the hard way, the old way. There was no email, there was no cell phones, there was no Pro Tools. There was, you go in and you record the tape, and you better get it right. Mm-hmm. And I'm kind of proud of all the hard work that we did back in the day when it wasn't so easy. Now, these days, it is easier with email and everything else. But again, there's such a flood. There's so much going on that it's hard to get your message out, because everywhere you look, there's incoming something. It's an ad. It's and the attention span of folks has gone down to about 10 to 15 seconds.
Indeed.
I never listened to music that way. When I was growing up, I would go down to the record store. I would buy a record. I would take it out of the sleeve. I would put it on the first song on side A all the way and listen to it all the way to the last song on side B. All the while looking at the photos, looking at the artwork, reading the lyrics, and sort of letting the project take me to the place exactly intended by the artist.
Even smell the paper and, fill it with more senses and enjoy the whole piece like a whole package, not just as pixels on your screen and then an MP3 or something playing.
Well, and again, the making a time commitment to that which I was interested in letting in making it a part of my life. That's not what I see these days. I see, the Spotify and other things like that, and people. Somebody's like, "Hey, I've watched these conversations. Hey, man, check out this new yada yada," and they play a little piece of it in about 10 minutes. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, man, check this out. And it's like there's no time actually spent. Maybe I don't know. It's short attention span. Yeah. Now, I'm still not that way. If I want to listen to something, I listen to it. And I have a nice stereo in my truck, and I drive around and I listen to music as I'm going about my day. And when I buy something new, I listen to it. I give it a really good chance. And there's some things that just come out, and the more I listen to it, I'm like, wow, this is just so good. And it's unfortunate that not everybody is able to take the opportunity to listen and to be a fan at that level.
David, from this interview, I want to start with a new philosophy of having a break every now and then. So is it okay if we take a 2 or 3 minutes break, put a video that advertises everything? You can grab another beer, I can grab another beer, our friends over here can do the same. So we're going to have a break of 2 or 3 minutes, and we will be right back with everybody, okay? So see you all in a second. Okay. Okay, everybody, we're back. Right. So we were talking about technology, and I'm gonna mention two letters: AI. What are your thoughts?
I don't know yet. It's something. I mean, I don't see myself using it. I'm too old for that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. But the way you've seen it, actually, I'll start with the music industry first. The way you see it infiltrating in music. A lot of people have, this worry that music will actually have no sense because it is not the result of the human soul, of the human feeling and everything, and it's just machines producing something that is actually, like dead or something like that. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
That could happen.
Hmm.
It won't happen to me.
Hmm.
But it's you have to put information into it in order for it to spit something out. So for those who put information into it, then be careful what you wish for.
Hmm. Hmm. And about AI outside of music in general in our life.
So that's we're getting softer and softer as a human species.
Mm-hmm.
I had a chat with a friend of mine who was probably of different beliefs than I am,
Mm-hmm.
and I asked a question. I said, "So, if all of this breaks, what are you going to do? How are you going to survive?" He said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, you wake up and there was some kind of a disaster,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to figure out how to eat. Well, I would just call Uber Eats. Well, Uber Eats doesn't exist. Well, I would call someone. Well, the cell phone doesn't exist. Okay, well, I would just go. I would drive somewhere where it did work. Well, your car no longer works because it was an EMP that did it. And you start picking this down, and people have become so much less self-reliant, if not entirely non-self-reliant. And those people would be the first to go.
Hmm.
And I don't know that anybody pays much attention to that. This is where maybe that question that you asked me some moments ago about the difference between genius and paranoia. Am I paranoid? No, I'm prepared.
Hmm.
And maybe the paranoia has fueled my desire to be more prepared. But if you don't have basic skills, then you are reliant on someone else who does. And if that someone else is not available, then sounds to me like you're stuck.
Hmm. Right. My friend Vitamin Death said before, side A to side B, while letting the music take you. Commit is the key word. Put the time. So yeah. And then he asks, do you find inspiration on country music? It has a very dark side, like the blues for sure.
Well, so some of it. And there are different, how do I put this? There's different subgenres within country as well. There are people who are genuine artists who are writing from the heart, and that's probably more what I tend to listen to when it comes to country. The stuff that's this sort of what they call pop country,
Mm-hmm.
where a lot of like sort of the Nashville kind of stuff is not to my liking. It's not genuine.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Um, it seems you're very happy with Season of Mist, right?
They're good people. I mean, we have a business relationship, so
Yeah, I mean
in business.
it's a long relationship, isn't it? I mean, you've been working with these guys for a long time, so And I
Well, I
assume.
worked with Eric. I worked with Eric for a long time. I've worked with lots of people for a long time, and everything is great until it's not. And you never know. Uh, no one can predict where something is going to go up or down. But currently, Season of Mist has done well for us, and we have a very nice symbiotic relationship.
Okay, good. David, how important do you consider the artwork for a band? What are your favorite artworks in your career?
Well, art should, obviously you want it to express or to be in alignment with what your goals are. So whether that's if you do it yourself, kind of in the case of what Voivod did, when he did his Away has his own sort of style of calligraphy. So when he'd write out everything and doing it his way and handle the artwork, that's super personal. I'm not someone who draws well, so that's not an option that I have. But it goes from there to people that are happy with whatever. Everyone's motivation is different. But is it important to me? Yes, it is important to me. And the cover that we were able to obtain for Blessed Are the Sick is probably one of my favorites. Beautiful, beautiful piece of art.
Indeed, yeah. And tell us about the artwork in your latest works. I mean, who did it? How happy are you with it? What does it express for you?
Well, let's talk about Ultimus then. With Something Wicked, this fellow named Bilak did it, and he drew it, and it's very, very busy. It's very complex. There's a lot going on in it, and it's if you sit down and study it, it's almost of the same sort of mindset that the Altars of Madness artwork was. Now, they don't look anything alike, but in terms of the involvement, it's very involved, and there are chasms. There are great chasms between all the different stuff, and then it signifies to me that it's a bedrock of history, and it's built up, and it has it shows foundation, as the members of the band all have foundation. So that was very interesting. The new record is one that we wanted to make it just very bold and very iconic, and I think we achieved that. So it's how does something work with what the general messaging and the intent of the music is? I think that's what's important to find. Sometimes it could just be a color. Sometimes it could be an image. Sometimes it's a whole bunch of things, and sometimes the artwork is much better than the music contained in the record. I mean, I've seen it all. So to me, it's important. Okay. As part of the overall offering of the art.
Nikos Sahinis is asking in the comments. He says, last March when I had the pleasure of seeing them live at Kitaro Club, I personally enjoyed a theatrical approach to David's performance as a singer. This approach was truly impressive, and I must admit that it is far more challenging than the classic headbanging and running around on stage, even though the stage was relatively small.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I take it seriously. It's a whole different atmosphere with Ultimus than for some of the other things I've done.
Yeah, and I think Nikos is right over there. There is this theatrical approach, and not only that, but I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like you are exploring again in your vocal performance different routes, and yeah, just that. You're exploring different routes vocally, aren't you?
Well, yes, and I like that I had a clean slate with this band, to where there are no expectations other than, yes, it's me, but it's a different side of me, and it is much more atmospheric. It's helpful that I'm only doing vocals and I'm not singing, because when having to do both, it limits my ability to perform in the way that creates the kind of atmosphere that I'm trying to create.
Okay.
So,
have you, and I know you have you listened to any Greek metal bands? Which ones?
Gee, I don't know. Are there bands from Greece?
You mentioned Septic Flesh before.
I did. I really like them a lot. I really like what they're doing. And I had a chance to see them at a festival that we played together in Mexico, and they actually had the orchestra.
Yeah.
That was on my bucket list. It's much different witnessing that than it is just, when they have to perform and the stuff is on backing tracks. It really made a very big difference to me. I mean, I love the material, and from a live standpoint, the material, as Christos, what his intent is, it certainly comes across in a much more Wagnerian fashion than when it's only the band stripped down and the orchestral stuff has to be on tracks. So I enjoyed it.
Okay. Any other bands that maybe you remember that they as they gave you a good impression?
Yeah, Rotting Christ. That's about it. I mean, a lot of stuff that I hear, I don't know necessarily where it's from. Someone will play something and I'll hear it, and I don't know the name of the band, but I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I rely on others to kind of direct me to new stuff. My bass player in Ultimus is pretty good at that, because he knows what I like, and he'll come up with strange stuff. He goes, yeah, I heard something, I think you might like it. And he'll play something for me. I'm like, that's interesting. And it may or may not be metal. It's just, I like all kinds of stuff. But there are certain things about it that I can't even tell you, well, I like this or I don't like that, or I listen. And if I like it, I'm happy, because I hear so much stuff that I don't like. So when I hear something that I do like, it puts a big smile on my face. So I'd love to hear more stuff that I do like.
Okay. Vitamin Death is asking, do you still enjoy performing live after all these years?
Absolutely. Best drug in the world.
Cool. Okay. And things you love besides music in this life?
Well, motorcycles.
Motorcycles, okay.
I love riding my motorcycle.
You wanna tell us what kind of a motorcycle you're riding?
Well, what kind do you think I ride?
Probably not a moped.
You'd be correct on that.
Okay. I would guess, and I'm really ignorant with motorcycles, because I'm a car guy, but that's another thing.
No, I'm a car guy too. I'm an everything guy. I love, good cars. Yeah, cool cars.
I'm in the 70s era of but they're European. Obviously, if we start exchanging, our knowledge, we were in different scenes, obviously, because that's like two different things. But yeah, I like it when, I like it strong with good torque and make it fun.
How loud?
Yeah.
Loud?
Not necessarily. My mechanic always says that the sound in proper cars does not come from the exhaust, but from the intakes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really big on exhaust. I have a couple of hot rods that I've spent an awful lot of time and money trying different exhaust and measuring things out and getting it to where the tone was just right for me.
Yeah. It's two things you can't hide: displacement and a cough, I think. All right. Okay, so
displacement is something that unfortunately has been relegated to history. Everything is smaller now, and in some cases just electric, and that's not to my liking at all.
David, are you interested in science, any form of it, from astrophysics to you name it?
Well, it interests me more in the outcome than anything else. It's not something that's part of me, but am I interested in it? Yeah.
Okay.
The forward to the introduction to my book was written by an astrophysicist.
Yes, I read that, but I don't remember the name.
His name is Matt, and he's a really good guy. And he was the one that he worked with the European Space Agency to land like a probe onto a moving asteroid.
Was it the Rosetta thing?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's correct.
All right. Okay.
So that's who he was. And it was really interesting. And, I got to meet him a couple times. He came out to a show and I had a chance to, speak with him quite a bit. And, he's a metal fan. But, he's sort of focused his energy and his ambitions on science. And it's very interesting. I mean, to me, again, I'm a complete novice when it comes to this kind of stuff, but this notion of people reaching for something that doesn't exist or has not yet happened is always fascinating, whatever walk of life that happens to be. So that was the reason why I asked him to write the foreword, because we in life, even though our lives are very, very different, I'm also someone who strives to do things that haven't been done. And so in that, we completely agree. So even though it has nothing to do with music, although he's inspired by music pushes him. I mean, he's an extreme metal fan. And that pushed him to new heights. And I think the whole world is proud of him. Absolutely.
Yeah, I remember that. And it was fascinating. I mean, landing, a spacecraft, a space device on a moving rock in the universe is just like something you can't imagine. The mathematics, the maths that you have to do besides, behind in the background and everything, and it's just insane. Okay, so we're gonna have our second break for 3 minutes over here, and we will be back in 2-3 minutes. Okay, so that everybody can enjoy a couple of minutes break. So see you all in a second. Okay, everybody, we're back. Right, so just gonna read a couple of questions from our viewers. Yeah, Hesher Heshington said before Harley Davidson, of course.
He'd be right.
Yep. And he also says, just bear with me for a second, okay. David, thank you for all your work and music. I have been attending your show since blessed days. What can you say about the business end of the extreme metal scene between now and the old days?
Well, there's a whole lot more traffic. That's for sure. But I've noticed that in touring anyway. I mean, there used to be times where, and even where I live, I remember growing up, there would be like a major concert that would come through maybe every 2 or 3 months, right?
Mm-hmm.
And over the years, that's sped up a lot to the point where now I could go to downtown Austin and I'd have to choose between which show I wanted to see because sometimes there's 2 or 3 per night at different venues. So there's a lot, everyone's traveling, everyone is on the road. If you're making music, that's, you're not really selling records like you used to. So that's probably the biggest thing is this need to, stay on tour constantly.
Yeah.
So that's probably the biggest difference between like these days and how it used to be. But other than that, it's just great. Again, when we're doing a show and someone has chosen to come see the show and spend their money with us, you better believe that I respect the hell out of that person. And I'm going to do my level best to give every ounce of energy that I have on that stage. Because again, folks have choices whether they can sit down and stay at home and play a video game on their phone or, any number of different distractions. And the fact that they have entrusted me to be their entertainment choice for that particular evening, I'm very thankful. And I don't take it for granted. And part of the reason why I work so hard.
Has it ever occurred to you with any of the bands that you have, been a part of to, let's say, be on a tour and go on a show and one night at a specific venue, there's literally almost nobody, like maybe 1 or 2 or 3 or 10 people?
Well, thankfully,
due to either bad promotion or I don't know,
Right. Well, thankfully, I don't have that challenge, but I can imagine it would be. I don't know anybody would be happy about that.
Obviously.
But I would still do everything that I do to the best of my ability. See, the point is, and I've had these kind of conversations with folks before. If I'm playing for 500 people, or if I'm playing for 50,000 people, my job is exactly the same.
Even if it's one person. Change. Yeah. Even if it's one person.
I do what I do regardless of what, and believe it or not, it's much easier if it at a festival for 50,000.
Yeah.
It's much easier to do because ordinarily the budgets are higher. All the production is great. And, it's when the problems result when it's some of the smaller venues that don't have adequate, sound system or, dressing room space or some of these other things festivals are better paid and things run smoothly for the most part. And smaller venues are where all the challenges come in.
One of the best gigs I saw, I remember it was like 2001. in England. I used to be a university student over there. It was just happening just the next road from where I was living, and it was Blaze Bayley right after he left Iron Maiden with his personal project. It was like maybe just a handful of us. It was like 50 people or something like that. But it was such a killer show, and the band even loved it. Sometimes, it's okay. It's not that many people, but if the band actually loves what they're doing, and you've got some good fans over there, it's just celebration, isn't it? Just good vibes.
Well, again, if the sole reason that you're doing something is employment, then the employment part could be tough. Probably much better rewarded getting a different job.
Yeah.
If you love music and you have a passion of music, music haunts you.
It's a difficult path.
That is your vocation, whether you choose it or not. If it's in your blood, then you do what you have to do when you have to do, and it's a roller coaster. Sometimes it's great, sometimes it's not so great. But it's the commitment that you make to your soul and to your music and to your fans that you always do the best you can, no matter what the circumstances are.
And Hesher, before, when he mentioned that with the business part, he says, it makes me happy to see bands that I grew up listening to and seeing venues in the early days of death metal apparently being successful on big tours and festivals in the modern era. Is the business environment providing an appropriate living wage to bands and artists in extreme metal?
Well, in my case, I'm fortunate enough to have enough under my belt, and I've done enough records, and I've been doing this long enough to where I'm okay. During COVID, I wasn't. But we can't really count that. That was something that really, harmed a lot of people. Besides the sickness itself, the reaction was extremely harmful.
Yeah.
So, let that be a lesson, everyone. When people tell you that you need to wear a mask and stay home, don't believe it.
Besides, the whole world was at a pause. Everything, not just music, not just the health part and everything, but yeah. Okay, David, gigs you remember as a fan and you will never forget.
Oh, you mean like shows that I've been to, or that kind of thing?
Shows, gigs that you've been to, and as a fan that you will never forget. Not as a musician at the moment, not gigs you performed, but gigs you went there as a fan, and that it was like the best thing, that you can remember.
Well, I mean, I'm still a fan, and whether I remember when Morbid Angel on our Covenant tour, we were the opening band for Black Sabbath and Motorhead. And I'm a huge fan of both of those bands, and I was there in the audience while they were playing. After our set, I would watch them. I would go to their sound checks. I mean, so I was a fan and I was working at the same time. So I guess that's a double whammy, right? But yeah, I think anybody who's a musician is certainly a music fan as well. And I've been fortunate enough to see a lot of really, really, really good artists over the years, and I'm thankful for that. And even if I find myself not in the mood to go out, I sometimes force myself to do so. And even if it's not sort of my first choice in music, but being able to have an opportunity to do some of these things. I remember seeing Prince. A fantastic show. Just stunningly good. The musicianship was incredible. Again, it's not my... Pardon me?
Sorry, which year was that?
Oh, don't get me lying. It was obviously before he died.
Yeah.
It was in Finland, of all places. So, not, again, an opportunity presented itself, and I was asked if I would like to go, and I said, yeah, why not? And I'm glad I did. And it reminded me that, again, even if something is not my sort of preferred or my first choice in music, it's I'm super happy that I went.
You also mentioned before Black Sabbath and Motorhead as your favorites, you know. And I remember that you had to fill in for Lemmy at the Head Cut. I think that was must have felt somehow, you know, to be in this position after Lemmy.
Well, I mean, listen, there's no replacement for Lemmy. It's not possible. But yeah, it was an honor, and it was a whole lot of fun too. Not something that I probably ever thought about, but I was asked, and I said, "Oh, okay, yeah." I mean, I had to think a little differently about it. You know, it's not, again, that's, you know, rock and roll wasn't really my forte, but it's very intuitive, and you know, I knew Danny. And I was, you know, growing up, I was a fan of the Stray Cats as well. So, you know, it was really cool to be able to have an opportunity to do that.
I'm sorry because I don't have the information myself over there. Is it something that is still going on? No,
No,
you're not any
no,
longer over there. Okay,
no.
all right, okay. David, cool albums you listened in 2024 and enjoyed, something that drew your attention and say, that's good.
Well, let's see. It was 2024 when we just got off this tour. So, there's two things that struck me this year. One of which is an old record, but I hadn't heard it. But I heard it fresh, and it's really the last one that I just bought. It's a Deep Purple record. It's called Rapture of the Deep. And we were having a meet and greet, and I told my guitar player, I said, yeah, let's get some background music going here. And he goes, well, what do you want? He goes, death metal. I said, no, it's something, put Deep Purple on. So it was just a random selection from Spotify.
Okay.
And it kind of put these different things on, and that the song, the title track to that record, Rapture of the Deep, came on, and I was listening to that. I'm like, is that Deep Purple? And then I heard Ian Gillan singing. I'm like, yeah, it is Deep Purple. And I was like, man, this is great. So the next day I went to iTunes and I bought the record, and I love it. Nothing like, and I say this with all love and respect. It's not that nobody writes songs like old guys do.
Yeah. Because
they get in and they play, and they're all wonderful players. Ian Gillan is a huge influence on me. Love his vocals. I love everything about that record. And then the other one, band that struck me was a band that we just toured with. Actually, the opening band on this Devastation on the Nation tour that we just did. A band called Knoll.
Okay.
Knoll.
K-N-O?
Really, really. L-L.
Okay. Knoll.
Knoll. Knoll.
Okay.
Really, really interesting take. I mean, it's somewhat black metal-ish. The singer makes his own instruments. He had a table with all these strange things affixed to it, springs and almost a quasi theremin type of a setup that he would play and gesture. Different things would make different sounds. They had a trumpet player. And I think they call themselves some kind of funeral grunge.
Okay.
I think that's what I think that's what they call themselves.
So they're quite
in terms of
inventive, even with instruments, as you say.
Yeah, yeah. It was a very, very strange, very ugly experience, and that's what I liked about it. The ugliness is what caught me.
I'll check them out. I don't know them. All right. Okay. And I did want to ask you what you think of Atheist.
Well, Kelly's been a friend of mine for, since the dawn of time.
We've got an interview coming up on Tuesday.
With Kelly?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a very accomplished musician, cool guy. As I don't live in Florida for some years now, I haven't seen him in quite some time, but I do have very fond memories, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's been in quite a few projects. He's been quite creative. Yeah.
No, he is. He's a very creative guy and a good guitar player.
Yeah. Okay. Going back to Ultimus, video clips. Correct me if I'm wrong. We have only seen. Do I pronounce it correctly? Miserere. Miserere. Okay, the Greek way. Miserere. Yep. Any chance we might see another one in the future?
Yes, we just finished one, and it will be released on the 22nd of this month, so just a couple days.
Okay, cool. Any hints? Something to prepare us, or?
Well, the song is Mephisto Manifesto.
Okay.
And we shot it recently when we were on tour in Europe. Mm-hmm. We had a couple days off. Well, no such thing as days off when you're on tour. There's non-show days. So we took that opportunity to do some photo shoots and to shoot this video. And it's a concept video. And I just saw the final cut of it last night, in fact. Mm-hmm. And I love it. I think people will be happy.
So will it have shots from live performances or?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope.
Okay. It will be, as you said, conceptual.
Yeah, you'll see Blasphemer playing guitar in some shots, but that's it. No one else.
Okay. Cool. I wanted to ask you about Black Sabbath, to compare the different periods with Ozzy, Dio, and Ian Gillan.
Mm-hmm. To compare them, well, yeah. So
as a fan, most of all.
As a fan, so there's only one record that I can say that I didn't really care for as much. And I don't think it was even meant to be a Black Sabbath record. I think it was meant to be a Tony Iommi solo record, and I'm talking about Seventh Star. I didn't really care for that, so we'll just leave that out of the running. I listened to Black Sabbath, Ozzy stuff ad nauseum when I was younger. They really, Tony Iommi started. I don't think there'd be such a thing as extreme metal without him. I really believe that. Mm-hmm. I believe that he started something. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, no doubt in my mind. You remove Black Sabbath and you don't have any of this death metal or anything. I really believe that.
My friend Vitamin Death, who was in the comments previously, he was at another interview we were doing, and I remember a comment he said that we can all find shelter under Iommi's big mustache, all of us.
I didn't hear.
We can all find shelter under Tony Iommi's big mustache, he said last time.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. I imagine he meant that complimentary.
Yeah, of course. Okay.
Yeah, and so yeah, I love Black Sabbath. I like the fact that when Ozzy left, the stuff that they did with Dio was also incredible. I even really like Born Again well, I'm an Ian Gillan fan anyway, but that's a really weird record, and I like it because it's so weird.
Okay.
I like the Tony Martin records. I mean, it's just a, no matter what, there's this riff master, and you hear his stamp on when he plays. Nobody sounds like him. He has a sound that is unmistakable for being Tony Iommi. There's literally no question about it. You can hear, it's almost like that Name That Tune, you can hear like about 2 notes and you'd be like, oh, that's definitely Tony Iommi. He's a one of a kind.
Indeed. All right, so we're gonna take another break of 3 minutes, and we have a few questions left, just a few. I hope you're okay with time. So everybody stay tuned. We'll be back in 3 minutes. Okay, everybody, we're back. We have a few questions left, and I will remind everybody, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the comment section. So we're back with David Vincent from Ultimus. Now, David, I have a few questions from my close friend, Mr. Manos Zafirakis, who also sends you his regards. And he says, which one do you consider to have been the most difficult time in your career, and which one the most beautiful one that took you off emotionally?
Speaking about records?
Generally in your career. Could be something that happened, could be in the creational in the creation process, could be anything. I'll leave it free.
Well, record-wise, probably Illude was the most difficult thing that I've done.
Okay.
Yeah, that was a very strange time. And
why was it difficult for you?
Well, gosh, that's when Pete had his injury, and he was unable to play.
Right. Yeah.
We had just worked in a new guitar player and a new drummer, and the writing process was really, really strange. That not what I was accustomed to. You know, again, I did the best that I could with what I had to work with, and I think there's some really, really good performances on the record. Some of the material was just very strange, but again, you know, my job is vocals, and I did the very best that I could with what I had to work with. From a difficult time period, right at the end in 1996, when I was leaving the band, I was a very miserable person, and that's part of the reason why I left. I needed to get some things right with myself, and I did. And there was even though we were really at an amazing point career-wise, you know, when you're not happy, you need to address it, and I'm glad I did.
Okay.
So that's my answer to both.
Okay. This
This
covers the negative part.
Yeah. So positive part. Goodness. You know, it's really interesting. There are challenges with everything you do, and some of it, you know, I go back to Nietzsche, who said, "That which doesn't destroy you makes you stronger," and I wholeheartedly believe in that quote. I think it's one of the most masterful quotes that I've ever read, and I live it every day. In the face of challenge comes growth, renewed strength, creativity, and a whole host of emotions and evolutions. So I look forward to challenges, and you know, the day that I'm no longer on this planet, you can assume that a challenge came by that I was not able to overcome. Until that happens, bring it on.
You know, I always believe that when you fall down to the pit, it's like a big barrel. You reach the bottom, there's not a lower level of hell to go. You can only ascend, you can only go back. Now there's an option you have there. You can either stay there and die and diminish, or you have the option to start swimming back towards the surface.
Yep.
It's
Sure.
either this or that. And it's one of the only cases in life where it's only black and white. There's nothing else.
True.
Yeah. So, but when you actually take that decision to start swimming up, it's only gonna get better. You know, it's gonna be tough as hell, but it's gonna get you to a much higher level in your life and reach a higher step, I think. And
Well, no, you're right. And, you know, it reminds me of something that my wife says. She has all these little sayings about this, that, and the other thing. And one of her sayings is, well, you know, if you want to get to the other side of the pasture, you're going to step in some cow shit. And
true.
it's true.
Yeah.
You know, the struggle in everyone's walk of life, no matter what they do, whether you're a musician, whether you're a doctor, whether you're a lawyer, whether you're an Indian chief, it doesn't matter. Everybody has their little red wagon that they either push it or pull it. They go up or down a hill. And the goal is just to keep moving, because when you stop, that's when you die.
I'm also speaking from a personal, like all of us, you know, a personal experience. I mean, last year for me has been hell. I lost my father about a year and a half ago, and that was something that I had to go through. And it's never gonna heal, but you know, it's you find in the process some things that you actually do to make you feel better. Maybe they're little tiny things, but they're like a psychotherapy, you know. And Ultras of Metal is actually one of those. That's why I restarted it after 20 years. And doing this now, I mean, thank you again for being in this show. As I said, you're like a godfather of this thing that I created when I was 16. I'm very happy. It's for me, it's kind of historical, man. You know, it's after 25 plus 4, 29 years that I started this. And after 29 years, the godfather of the show is here. So, moving on to this, thank you, man. Moving on to this, I'd like to say a big part in the human world is, and the black one, is depression. And I can see a lot of people around us, close friends or not, facing this thing. I don't know. What do you think about depression? What do you think is... you have a close friend, let's say, somebody, or even somebody you don't know. Obviously, we're not psychiatrists, but what do you think is the best way to approach somebody who is going through this difficult journey?
Well, are they asking for your help? That's the first question. Or are you just intervening?
Let's say you see somebody you know, and no, he's not asking for help. What would you do?
Well, I would try to help. Sometimes trying to help can take different. Sometimes they're receptive. Sometimes they're not. Sometimes they need a distraction. Sometimes I have to make them mad at me, so they're more angry with me than they are with whatever is keeping them depressed. And that's a trade I'm willing to make, even if it has long-lasting consequences with our friendship. And I have a little bit of experience with that. And the point is that if you, being human and having an ounce of love in your soul, especially when, friend, family member, what have you, it's always the right thing to do, no matter if they're receptive, if they're not receptive, if you have to make them happy, if you have to make them angry at you for inserting yourself into their situation. It's worth it if the outcome gets them moving forward again.
I always thought that giving the cold-blooded, cynic, bastard truth in a nice way, making it sure that you have good intentions, but giving it straightforward, just like that, is the best thing. Would you agree?
Well, I agree with that. I mean, I'm a pretty direct person, and sometimes people take offense to that, but I'm sorry about their bad luck. The point is just just the facts.
Yeah.
Facts, direct. That way, there's if you dance around an issue too much, you're not getting the point gets softened, and sometimes the point does not need to be softened. So pay no attention to the delivery, pay attention to the message.
Okay. I'll continue with questions of my friend Manos over here. He says, when a musician composes music at a young age, they get filled with enthusiasm and energy. From your own personal experience, can you tell us if this emotion remains unfaded with the flight of time, or is it perhaps becoming a routine, so the enthusiasm gradually fades?
I'm still quite enthusiastic. I love what I do. I'm fortunate to be where I am now, and I'm fortunate to have had all the experiences that I've had over the years that have brought me to this point, both good and bad, by the way. And it makes me a more complete person. I still have lots of energy. I still have a lot of things I want to do. I mean, I would say I'm just getting started, but we all know that's not true. But with everything that I do, every new thing I do, is I go in it, even oftentimes even more enthusiastically, because of where I am, or what has motivated me, or what has inspired me. Now, staying with that line of thought, I can't even imagine getting into a quote unquote routine. That's if it got that bad, I would stop. Because that's not who I am.
Okay. Now, tough question, funny one as well. Manos asks, Can you tell us something that the average metalhead would be shy to admit? For instance, I love watching romantic comedies, or I love listening to love songs, or whatever.
Well, I mean, I write love songs, so that's not a thing. Romantic comedies is not really my thing. Sometimes I will endure it. Um, if it's something that my wife wants to watch, I'll put up with it. Sometimes I find them, I may find one or two things in there that I actually find funny or interesting. Not really a comedy guy, never have been. The things that I find funny are not the things that other people would find funny. I mean, I find myself looking at things and laughing, and no one around me even understands what I'm finding so amusing about it. And if I have to take the time to sit there and explain it, which I sometimes do, they still don't get it.
Mm.
Like, well, all right, it's just, you know, we're all triggered by the things that we're triggered by. That's the interesting part of being dynamic and unique human beings.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we all have the things that we like. You know, there's foods that I like that people don't like, and vice versa. Music, art, film, weather. I mean, there's a million, and that which is great because there's so many options out there. You know, I've said this in the past a lot. I mean, life's a salad bar. You go up and you put on your plate what you like, and you leave what you don't.
Okay. All right.
That's simple.
Good. Now, Manas is also asking, are you satisfied from heavy metal in our days, or do you miss the past?
There's always things I miss about the past. When I go and listen to old records, and I listen to bass lines, for example, people they don't write songs like that anymore. I don't know why, but you know, maybe it's not considered to be commercially expedient or whatever the case is. So I like a lot of old music, and I like old guys that make new music because they know what they're doing. Mm-hmm. As in the case of Deep Purple.
I remember Simmons from Kiss. He said that you will never find again a new Lemmy or a new Jimi Hendrix or a new Idol or a new amazing musician because of the way the music industry has changed. Because it's what we said before in the business part. It's a very tough road now. You know, you won't get a living. It's very difficult to make a living from making music. Do you think that he's right, that we won't get to see the next big thing, the way things have evolved?
Well, the next quote unquote the next big thing, I think it will exist. I just don't think that it will get the attention it probably deserves, because they are out there. There is magic out there, but what is promoted, what would be considered to be commercially viable enough for some producers or labels or what have you to want to invest, you know, a lot of resources into it. They would much rather go for something that they can easily identify or easily put in a box. And so when you ask me about, do you think become a routine for me? What's become a routine for are the record companies and the producers, what they're willing to take a chance on versus something that would be a known entity, or that they could literally already see it being able to sell, you know, X number of copies. You know, we spoke about Prince earlier. I don't know if Prince came out today as a new artist that he would have gotten to the point where he was prior to his passing. I don't know that. Same thing with Jimi Hendrix. I don't know that Jimi Hendrix would have, had he come out today with the amount of glut that's in the sort of the music bin these days. I don't know if he would have stood out. These are the things, we don't know. I mean, if there was only as many bands as there were back in the day, then it would be easier for those the diamonds in the rough, shall we say?
Yeah.
It would be easier for people to be more aware of them. Instead, they're inundated constantly with this and that and the other thing. I mean, remember, you may remember back. I don't know how old you are, but
43.
Okay, so when you were a kid, I mean, like a young kid, how many television channels did you have?
Over here in Greece, I remember having only 2. And we just didn't know what to select. One was better than the other. Now you have 20 or 30 and it's all crap.
Yeah, well, in my case, and certainly with these, streaming services and everything else, I mean, there's literally thousands and thousands of channels.
True. And
everybody needs content. And more often than not, lots of the content is just absolute garbage. I mean, you'd be better time going out and raking your yard than watching any of it.
True.
So yeah, it's just, you can't get the attention because there's so much. You can't pick one drop of water out of an ocean. But it was just a puddle, then it was easier.
True.
Now it's like as far as the eye can see, there's something happening, and it's very hard to take the time necessary to differentiate between what's really magic and what's not, because everything is being promoted the same. So when something's like, oh, this is the greatest thing, and you've heard this is the greatest thing for a gazillion times as opposed to just once or twice. So part of it is perception. Part of it is, again, is traffic. Downtown Athens, if you went and let's just say, for example, like King Herod came in and
like what?
King Herod from the biblical times.
Yep.
Right. Came in and removed 100,000 people. Just not even individually selecting, whether, fathers, mothers, kids, whatever, and just removed them. I would bet you that the traffic jam that you see in Athens every morning wouldn't change one bit. You wouldn't notice it.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, somebody would notice if dad didn't come home from work, or if the kids didn't come home from school. But from your eyes, unless it was somebody that you personally knew, you wouldn't. Your commute time into downtown Athens during rush hour would not change one bit.
Not to mention that your next door neighbor can die, and you can only realize it if it smells.
Well, there's that.
Yeah. Okay. Just reading a comment here. Hesher Heshington says that bass solo in Chapel of Ghouls, they just don't make them like that anymore. Okay. And the last question from my friend Manos over here, the 5th question is there an artist that you would love to collaborate with?
There's probably several artists that I would love to collaborate with. The first one that comes to mind would be Paul McCartney.
Okay, if Paul McCartney is in the comments.
I'm sure he's not. Well, one person who he's on my bucket list of people to at least meet before he passed.
And any of those who are not with us anymore, any longer?
I don't know how it would work, but Wagner.
That would be interesting. Yeah. Okay, so I'm reaching the end of my questions, and I will remind everybody, if you have any question, feel free to write it in the comments, because slowly we were going to close this interview. We're reaching 2 hours. It's not bad. as I expected. Now, my question here is, I was watching an interview of yours with Vanessa Warwick back in 91, and then I watched another one from 2023 in Chaos Zine. My story, pardon me, my story as a metal frontman. You know, what is the first difference I noticed between those two interviews? Your voice. The more you grow, your vocal cords seem to become like a low-end bass guitar. So
well, I mean, I do have a low voice, which was part of my attraction to bass as a stringed instrument, because I hear low tones. Yeah, I mean, you know, I'm fortunate that even after abusing my voice for so many years, that I feel like I'm strong. Oh,
sorry, you feel
something.
like we lost you for a second. You feel like you're
I feel like today my voice is stronger than it's ever been.
okay.
So I guess I'm fortunate, because there's a lot of people that can't say the same.
Okay. And this is a personal question. I think you already answered it in a way. I think you said blessed are the sick. But my favorite albums from your past are the first 4 of Morbid Angel. You said it's yours is Blessed?
Well, I said that was my favorite artwork.
Okay. But your
But in
favorite
terms of
album as a result?
Well, I mean, I like them all equally because they're all different. They all sound different. There's you know different techniques used on each of them, and each one of them is a testament to the time that it was made. So, I don't have a favorite per se. I mean, I enjoy all of the songs that I perform live. I enjoy everyone very much. Otherwise, I wouldn't do it. Again, I mean, I don't do things because I have to. I do things because I want to.
Cool. David.
Now, I wonder.
Yeah, go ahead.
Maybe you should interview Ozzy and ask him if he still loves Paranoid.
Okay. I hope. We will see. Hold on. Okay, there's my good buddy Nick Electrohead. He's from my town. And he says, question, back in MTV era 95 to 99, waiting to watch Headbangers Ball, I stumbled upon that video clip, God of Emptiness. Oh yes. That got me into Morbid Angel. Please, a few words on making that masterpiece. Cheers. And he says hello.
Oh, well, back to you, buddy. So that was actually interesting, and a weird twist of fate as well. So we made that video. First, we made from Covenant. We made Rapture, and that was the first one to hit MTV, and then we made God of Emptiness. Now it was the same director who did both of them, and God of Emptiness was the last video that he ever made because he was working on the set of making a video post God of Emptiness, and he died in a fire on set. So God of Emptiness was the last video that Tony Kuhnenwalder made, and he was a good, he the treatment was right, and we were all very happy with the result of it. Good video, really good. Of course, this is back when everything was shot on film, and we had Warner Brothers that paid a lot of money for that video. So it was a big production.
Always with my friends, we used to say that's the evilest fucking thing we ever saw as a video clip.
Well, I will take that as a compliment.
Cool. And Heshington says, thoughts of that video being featured on Beavis and Butthead as a follow-up question.
So here's the funny thing about that. Now, Mike Judge, who is the creative force behind Beavis and Butthead, he actually lives here in Austin. I met him one night at a bar, and just some friends of mine introduced me to him. I don't know him. He's not like a friend. He's not an enemy, but he's not. It's just. I was at a bar one night, and it's like, oh, hey, David, you meet Mike Judge. He's the one that did Beavis and Butthead, and then they goes, yeah, he's the singer from Morbid Angel. I'm like, oh, and Mike's first thing was like, hey, man, nothing. It's just a show. It's not like he thought I was going to be, aggressive with him. And to the contrary, some fans asked me, what do you think? Beavis and Butthead, it's cool, but man, they were laughing and like joking around and everything else. I'm like, you know what? Every time that video played, I reached into my mailbox and I got a check. So to that end, please laugh more. Please laugh more. Make more jokes, and here. Would you like a couple more videos that you can? I'm happy to do that, because that really, from finding. I mean, am I a fan of Beavis and Butthead? I mean, I find it really like lowbrow, unintelligent, whatever. I that's not my thing at all. Any more than South Park or Family Guy or any of that kind of stuff. It's just not. I'm just not into it.
Same
not
here.
my thing.
Same here. Yeah.
But listen, I mean, I'm sure that there are other bands who were included amongst those episodes over the years that also got, a bump in their careers, or there was some meaningful difference as a result. So, hey, there's no such thing as bad press. The only bad press is when someone's not talking about you.
And I think, why not? Let's laugh, If you're okay with yourself, nothing touches you, right?
It sounds good in theory. It's sometimes difficult in practice, but I'm at the point where I've been doing this so long, at my age, what's somebody going to do to me? You know what I mean? Like, I've heard it all.
You're a public figure, and I was discussing it with other metal YouTubers over here in Greece. Definitely not to your extent, but to a tiny part of it. But we are also public figures in a way, because we expose ourselves publicly. So I think that when you are becoming a public figure, doesn't matter if it's on a low scale or a big scale, you're gonna automatically face some, judgment. You might automatically find enemies and stuff like that. I think it's all in the process. So.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, there's, it's funny. My grandmother, God rest her soul, 98 years old, and we were sitting down having a conversation, and I had to take a call, and I was on the phone, and so I can't remember who I was speaking to or whatever, but I was like, yeah, all these haters are, I use that term haters. When speaking to who was on the phone. I got off the phone and my grandmother said, what is a hater? So I explained it to her. And she sat back and took a sip of her beer. She was still drinking beer at 98 years old. And she says, if you don't have any haters, then you're not doing something right.
Yeah, exactly.
And I will never forget that. In fact, I included that in a song, in one of my country songs, because it's true. If you're doing, someone is always going to be, there are a lot of haters out there, and it's unfortunate. I mean, there's people who are way more successful than I am, whom I'm friends with, a lot more money, a lot more fame, a lot more, if they're in the world of business, a lot more reach, a lot more. I've never looked at that as anything other than inspirational, me personally. And I would, to any haters that may be out there, or maybe aspiring haters, I would just say this: if you spend the same amount of time, even a partial amount of time that you spend hating on others, by improving your own situation, you'll be much happier.
I think it's meaningless to compare what you did now, the success of others with your success. I think the meaning in life is to compare yourself with yourself yesterday, where you are today.
Sure.
It's absolutely meaningless to say, well, they're more successful. I wouldn't see it that way, because we all have 1 million different, factors. We have a different head start from each other, and maybe somebody who is way more successful than you is maybe even more miserable than you. So, end of the day,
I've seen that as well. Yep, I've seen that too.
David, I caught something when you were talking about your grandmother before. You said, sorry, I have to ask you that. You said, "God rest her soul." So, asking David Vincent, is that a saying, or I'm going to the religious part?
No, it's a saying.
It's a saying. Okay. Thank you.
Something even a dark soul like you can understand.
I don't know if I'm a dark soul, but yeah, I can definitely understand it. Okay.
Well, all your haters told me you were a dark soul.
Correct. Okay, and my friend Nick, reading the last comment here, he says, "I just felt the meaning of evil was transported to the viewer directly under that freaking voice of you, sir." Yeah. I think he's referring to God of Emptiness when we were talking before. Okay. So, David, this is everything I've got from questions today. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure, sir. Thank you for joining us.
The pleasure's been mine, and I appreciate the fact that you hung in there and didn't give up on me. I know we had a long time. I don't know if you explained it to your viewers, but we've been working on trying to do this for several months, and life gets in the way of living. But I'm certainly glad to have the opportunity to speak with you, and I appreciate your time, and good luck and continued success with your program. And I hope to have a chance to meet you in person next time I'm in your wonderful country.
Thank you, man. Thank you so much. Well, David Vincent, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us tonight. And see you next time. All the best.